Hi, I'm Neeru Nagarajan, and this is my story, Witch Hunt. One evening, I saw her sitting on a large rock right outside her house. She had an unopened pack of milk biscuits in her hand, the wrapper crinkling every time she moved her fingers. Muthu, she called out. I stopped. I had never spoken to her before. You go this way every day, don't you? I did not know much about her, but I was still somehow scared of her. Maybe it bothered me that she knew my name. Maybe it was her posture, how comfortably she had positioned herself on that rock, as if that rock was her throne. I still remember very well. She sat with her right leg bent, her foot firmly on the rock, her arm lazily draped over her knee. She did not seem to care that her skirt had hiked up a little. I could see the insides of her thighs. Even at that age, I knew to turn away. Want some bickies? She asked with a smile. I did not answer her. Her smile died a little, but she persisted. If I give you the whole pack, will you play with me? I wanted the biscuits, but I did not want to play with her. Milk biscuits were expensive. I could not possibly afford them with my meager allowance. What was the catch? I wondered. After a couple of minutes, she sighed and beckoned me closer. You can take the biscuits. We don't have to play together. I snatched the pack from her and ran. I did not turn to look at her. When I reached home, I told my sister about the encounter. She seemed distressed. Do you know how many lives she has ruined? My sister asked. She grabbed the biscuits from me and threw them into the trash. I was reading this news article. I came across it, and I don't remember which publication, but there was an article about how a lot of women in Indian villages get murdered for their land, and the one excuse that the one kind of, the one accusation they have that they make on such women is that they are witches, and it's mostly very superstitious. It's a string of coincidences. And so I wanted to also write about that, but also how women are expected to conform to certain standards. Like a woman should sit a certain way, she should carry herself a certain way. And I wanted to write about a woman who did not fit any mold. And the idea behind that is that a woman who is strong and independent is most often the most frightening creature for many people. Uh, as for how I developed the plot for the story, one thing I learned is that a plot is only as good as the character and the conflict, the central conflict and the stakes. So I wanted to write about several big moments and build tension. So I made sure to set the scene, and then I worked on building up that ominous feeling of, oh no, something bad is going to happen. And so I built little scenes that create that feeling, and toward the end, it all culminates into a big moment. So that was how I planned the whole plot. So I used to write really long stories when I started out. They would have an extremely clear beginning, middle, and end, but they were so long. I used to write like 10,000 word stories. And then somehow I eventually started moving towards shorter stories, 1,000 words or less sometimes. And I learned that the plot needs, like I said earlier, characters, central conflict, and stakes, right? So the move towards shorter fiction, like flash fiction and microfiction, really taught me to build tension sooner. And so I feel like now I can write about a moment and I can flesh it out in such a way that I can give a clear picture of exactly how the characters are feeling, what they're going through, and I can create a big moment in so much as 500 words. And I find that extremely liberating. Shorter stories are meant to be more like a trap, but I feel that it's very freeing for me. One of my favorite tips is that if you're bored writing a section or a scene in your story, then it's probably going to be boring to read. So for me, the biggest tip would be to go from one big image to another. Like, you have to write that scene you're afraid to write. And sometimes the stories that seem bigger than you, if you break down into those big moments, those big scenes, then it's easier to flesh the story out. And also, it's okay, ultimately, even when you build a plot, it's okay to not be married to that plot or that map, like you can still take risks in the story. So when I was in sixth grade, I read Jurassic Park for the first time, the book, and I feel like Jurassic Park is a masterclass on foreshadowing and building tension, and the whole character conflict thing that I just told you about. One thing I really love about that story is that it follows this archetype of central character overcoming the monster, right? Like that is that is one of the story archetypes, and um, all of that is predictable in a way. Like, you know that something bad's going to happen, those creatures are going to be defeated, there's going to be destruction in the end, the main character is going to escape. Like, you know all of that, and the whole idea of the suspense building up and everything. Most of the story is foretold in the beginning itself. Like, people keep like, there's this character who's a mathematician, Ian Malcolm, and he keeps like foretelling of making predictions based on like in how many ways this whole thing could go wrong, right? And all of that happens, but still there's that suspense, that ominous feeling, those big moments that capture your interest. um, I personally think that book is a masterclass for building plot.